Hey, how's it going? Today I wanted to do a little devotional right out of the book of Mark in the fifth chapter. There's this incredible story that's framed really with two stories. There's a story that's inserted inside another story, and this is very well known. It's the story of a man, a leader, that comes to Jesus. He's from the local synagogue, and his daughter is very ill, and he wants Jesus to follow him. See, the problem is there's a large crowd around Jesus, and Jairus, his name, comes to Jesus begging him, so he has to fight his way to get to Jesus, and Jesus agrees to go with Jairus to see his daughter. Now, you can imagine Jairus was trying to clear the crowd out of the way, get them out of the way so Jesus would get to his daughter. And yet, right then, Jesus stops and turns around and he asks a question. He asks, "Who touched me?" And this is the beginning of the story that happens within the story. There is a woman who had been sick for 12 years, had been ill, who had been desperate to find healing. She had no more money left. She is run out of energy. She's in desperate need for healing. And in faith, she touches the hem of Jesus' robe and she gets healing. And all the while, this man, Jairus, is waiting on Jesus to follow him to go see his daughter. Jesus spends time with this woman who had had this illness for 12 years, and he speaks to her, and he says, "Your faith has made you well." So this woman is quite a remarkable woman. So Jesus turns back, and he starts following Jairus again, but in that moment, members of Jairus' household come to him, and they tell him that his daughter has died. And it's an amazing thing what Jesus says here in, let's see here, in verse 36. After all this, after the time Jesus took to get to where he was, and he didn't quite get to see Jairus' daughter, he turns to Jairus and he says to him, he says, don't be afraid, but believe. Don't be afraid, but believe. Now, it's kind of an interesting thing that Jesus would say that because, well, what more does the man have to hope for, right? Because his daughter is now dead. There's nothing left. I mean, and even the people from his household told Jairus to leave Jesus alone because it's over, right? And we know from other texts in Scripture that that's how everybody thinks about death. We think about death like that right now. Death is kind of it. You know, there's no coming back from death. In the book of 2 Samuel, David, he when his son dies, doesn't act as though he's going to come back. He acts as though his son will never come back. And yet Jesus tells Jairus to not be afraid, but simply believe. And I wonder what exactly this fear Jesus was referring to. I wonder exactly what Jesus was talking about. I can imagine that Jairus, his fear was simply what was realized, right? His daughter was already dead. But I also think Jesus is actually not talking about so much belief that his daughter would be healed. I think what Jesus is talking about here is belief in Jesus himself. Because that's really the problem that the man now faces. Now that his daughter has died, belief in Jesus is now going to be in question. Because Jesus wasn't good enough, right? At least at that moment, Jairus believed that Jesus wasn't going to be able to help his daughter. Jesus wasn't enough, or Jesus didn't have enough time to get to his daughter. That was clear, right? The crowds were gathering around him. They were pushing through. Jairus was probably desperately moving people out of the way so Jesus could get to him. And then Jesus paused, right? He spent time with another woman with another daughter. Jesus calls her daughter later on, and he spends time with her, interacting with her and giving her healing. You might imagine Jairus going, "Okay, Jesus, let's go." And Jesus, he doesn't. He spends time. And the fear would be, I think, in Jairus' case at this moment, that Jesus wasn't enough. He didn't have enough time. He did not have enough power to go around, right? The fear would be that Jesus spent too much time, perhaps, with this one woman who was ill for so long, and because he cared for her so much, he couldn't care for Jairus' daughter. And I think that's how we approach God very often. I think we have this kind of gut feeling sometimes that God cares so much about other people, and he gives other people miracles, and he gives time to other people, that there won't be enough for us. And yet Jesus tells Jairus, as well as us, to not be afraid, but believe. Because Jesus is Lord over all these things. There's no such thing as not enough time. There's no such thing as not enough power with Jesus. And there's also no such thing as not enough grace. Jesus has enough for all of us. And you might be in a situation in your life right now where you think, your time is kind of run up or run out. Perhaps you spent a great deal of your life pursuing things, and you feel as though your time pursuing God, there just isn't enough time. Or maybe you feel as though God needs to act now, or things just won't work, or life will be over. Friends, that's not a category that Jesus operates in. And it makes me think a little bit about the classic Bible story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? When they're told to bow down and worship Nebuchadnezzar, and they refuse, and they're being threatened with being thrown into the fire. And they tell Nebuchadnezzar to his face, they say, "Our God can and will save us, but," they say, "even if he does not, we still will not bow down and worship you." What they're telling the king is simply this: regardless of what God chooses to do, I will choose to believe in him. And that's what Jesus is teaching Jairus. Don't be afraid, but believe. See, the remarkable thing about faith is that your faith is only as good as the thing in which you have faith. Your faith is only as good in which the thing you have faith. And Jesus is saying, don't have faith in money, don't have faith in wealth, don't have faith in your job, don't have faith in the esteem of others. Have faith in me, because I am the only thing, I am the only one who is truly faithful. And that's what we are all called to do. We're called to believe in the one who is truly faithful. Faith is not necessarily something we kind of muster up ourselves. Right? Faith is not a feeling we get inside of ourselves. It's not a feeling of comfort. In fact, faith is very uncomfortable, right? Because it comes out of the fact that we're insecure. But when we rest our faith outside of ourselves onto the person of Jesus Christ, that's where we receive all our comfort, the greatest comfort, regardless of what happens, regardless of the circumstances. And of course, this also teaches us that even death, that thing that we believe is so final, that thing that will never be fixed, Jesus is Lord of death as well. He's ruler over death. He gets to Jairus' house and he tells everybody that the little girl is sleeping. And what he meant was that the girl has died, but death is as like sleep to those who are in Jesus Christ. And so that's all I have for you today. I just wanted to give you that little devotional. Blessings to you. Have a wonderful week. Bye.